DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as DreAllDay, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, you are doing too much. Now, what this episode is really about, it's about focus. And it's about narrowing your focus. And I'm going to help you understand why the narrowing of your focus is actually a good thing, not a bad thing. And understanding when and where we may be stretching ourselves in such a way that is hurting your effectiveness and your mandate for the production of results. And in case you didn't know, you have a mandate for producing results. And if you are not meeting that mandate, I'm going to help you suss out why you're not meeting it and what to do about it. I mean, isn't that great? I think it's great. Let's get into it. Point number one. Topic once again here today is you are doing too much. And I'm going to help you understand if I'm talking about you and how I know that I'm talking about you. First of all, let's establish a baseline. Focus is a force multiplier. I told you this in episode 1193. Focus is a force multiplier. What does that mean? That means the longer and stronger you focus on anything, the better you get at it. And the more return on your investment of focus you get, the longer you stay on something as a focus. So if you focus on something for 5 minutes, you will not get as much ROI from that focus as you would if you focus for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or for 15 weeks. The longer you stay on something, the better you get at it. That's a simple enough idea, right? So what's your number one goal right now? Just right now, general, this could be today. It could be your number one goal like this hour. It could be what's your number one goal just in this season of your life, this quarter, this year, this decade. What is your number one goal in life right now? Whatever your answer is, here's the follow-up question. Does your calendar and your checkbook reflect that goal? Does it look like, if I just looked at your calendar and your checkbook and I didn't know the answer to the question of what your number one goal is, I just looked at your calendar, what's on your schedule, and your checkbook, where you're spending your money, would I surmise that this person's number one focus is the same thing that you say your number one focus is? Or, on the other hand, do your schedule and checkbook look like you are focused on 10 things at an equal amount of each of the 10? A business coach once gave me the example. I was in his coaching program and he was giving me an example of when he was being coached by somebody else. And the coach that the coach had asked him, what is your main focus in life right now? And the business coach responded and said, well, of course, my focus is my family, my wife and my kids. And the coach responded to him and said, okay, go grab your checkbook and go grab your calendar. And we're going to take a look at them and we're going to see if your checkbook and your calendar look like what your words are saying. And the coach said that as soon as he got told that, go get your checkbook and your calendar, he started to feel embarrassed because he knew that his calendar and his checkbook did not look like what his mouth was saying, that his actual behavior was not a reflection of what he claimed his goals were. And the longer and the stronger, as I just said, you focus on anything, the better you do at that thing and the better results you get from it. So again, the question is, what is your number one focus right now? And does your schedule look like that's your focus? And is wherever your money going look like that is your focus? One big problem in the world we have today is that we are all trying to focus on so many things at the same time. It's actually an oxymoron to focus on more than one thing at a time. We never get the maximum results from anything that we do because we're trying to divide our focus. And again, I just told you how focus is a force multiplier. And focus is a singular concept. It's not a multiple. No multiple of focus. You can't have three focuses. There's no such thing as focuses as a plural. Focus is not a plurality. It's a singular thing. Now, I think the word focuses may actually be a word, depending on how you're using it. And there probably is a plural to focus. But what I'm explaining to you is that there's no such thing as having a plural to focus. You can only focus on one thing at a time. That's a human limitation. So for you personally, there is no plurality to focus. Does everybody understand that? You can never get maximum results from anything if you are not giving all of your resources to that thing. If you're trying to focus on more than one thing at a time, you're focusing on too many things by definition. So if you want to know what it meant to be doing too much, it means you're trying to do more than one thing at a time. If you're doing two things at a time, you're doing too much. If you're doing 3, if you're doing 10, if you're doing 17, you are doing too much. What is the right number of things to be doing at a time? 1. Now, this does not mean that you can't have a bunch of things going on in your life. I have a bunch of things going on in my life. There's a lot of different ways that results can be produced. There are royalties, there are joint ventures, there are collaborations, there are sales funnels out there, there are advertisers working for me, there is content working for me, there are people out there putting my name out there, marketing and selling for me. There can be a lot of different things going on. However, what Dre Baldwin is doing right now in this moment that I'm recording this is focusing on you as I'm delivering this message. I'm not trying to do 10 other things. I'm not checking my social media feed and responding to text messages and looking at email and tying my shoes at the same time that I'm talking to you. Because if I was trying to do any one of those other things in addition to talking to you, I would at that moment, by definition, be doing too much. And I'm not giving the best message I could be giving to you because I'm focused on something other than giving the message to you. When I focus on giving the message to you, I do my best job of giving the message to you. Now, here's where people get tripped up. Because if I was to not be completely focused and be doing something else right now, let's say someone sent me a text message and I started looking at the text while I'm talking to you, most of you probably would not notice that I'm not giving full focus to you right now, especially if you're not watching me on camera. Because right now I'm looking at the camera. But you might see me looking down and wonder, what's Dre looking at? Well, sometimes I'm also looking at my notes. And I could still do good enough in that 30 seconds that it takes me to look at the text message and continue to talk that you might not notice, and it may not lead to much of a drop off in the quality of my show. But as soon as I do that, I know I'm not giving my best to the situation because I'm not focused on one thing at a time. Again, by definition, you cannot give your best to more than one thing at the same time. It's not possible. So, are you doing too much? It's a question you should ask yourself. I just told you what too much is. Focus, ladies and gentlemen, cannot be split amongst multiple things if the goal is to be maximally effective at the thing that you're doing. If you're trying to get the most possible effect from the thing that you're doing, you cannot divide your focus amongst anything else along with that thing. This has to be that thing and nothing else if you're trying to get the most out of it. Now, if you're okay with not getting the most out of the thing, then you can divide it and do a bunch of other things. So it's just a matter of, what's your focus? What matters the most right now? So again, this is a question only you can answer. All right. What areas of your life are you okay with maybe only getting 80% of the possible best ROI you can get? And what areas is 100% necessary? You should know, because then you can decide, okay, here I need to focus on just this, but in these areas I can split my focus up because I don't need to be great at any of these things, and it's okay if I'm not. For example, if I'm washing the dishes, I don't need to give my full focus to washing the dishes because I don't really give a damn about being the best that I can possibly be at washing the dishes. I want to make sure the dishes get washed, but I don't need to be the best that I can possibly be. So I might divide my focus by doing something else at the same time washing the dishes because it doesn't matter that much to me. But if I'm doing something like writing a book, then I'm probably going to focus on the material that is going into that book and into my manuscript because I really want to do as best I can with that project. Not everything is equal. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is you are doing too much. Number 2, all of you know what boxing is, right? Everybody's heard of it, even if you don't know much of the detail. And other combat sports, you know about MMA, kickboxing, cage fighting, jiu-jitsu. All of you have an idea what these combat sports are, okay? You got an idea, okay? Now, let me ask this question. Do you know that when a fighter has a fight coming up, what do they do in the weeks and months leading up to the fight? Any of you knows anything about sports? You probably know the answer. What do they do? If a fighter has a fight coming up, what does he do for 6 weeks before the fight? Or 5 weeks or 2 months or whatever the situation is? What the fighter does is they go into camp. This is called camp or training camp. And where is that training camp? Often, it's not all the time, but often a fighter's training camp is somewhere that is outside of the geographical region where they normally live and normally operate when they don't have a fight. So if you live in Miami, for example, you have a fight coming up, you might go have training camp in Orlando. Or if you live in Vegas, you might have your training camp up in Northern California. You will go somewhere other than where you normally operate for your training camp. Now, the question is, why do they do this? And also athletes in other sports do this. Baseball and basketball players, for example, often have a month-long training camp. In basketball, they call it training camp. Baseball, they call it spring training. Down here in South Florida, there's a lot of teams, about half the teams in Major League Baseball have their spring training season down here in South Florida. As a matter of fact, spring training is going on as of the time that I'm recording this. By the time you hear this, it may already be into the regular season of baseball. It's usually around late February going into the month of March is training camp. And a bunch of teams have their camps somewhere down here. I remember when I was there was a time I lived in for one, maybe 6 month to 12 month period. I was living in Tampa Bay, Florida. And first of all, in Tampa, there was the New York Yankees. They had their training camp right there, and they would have their training camp games at this field right there in Tampa, Florida. And then I was in a different part of Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay is a pretty big area. And I was in a town right next to Clearwater. I was in Palm Harbor, Florida, and there was a town right next door called Clearwater, Florida. And that's where my hometown, Philadelphia Phillies, their training camp would be. And they had a field that was right next to, there's LA Fitness I used to go to down there. And their field was right next to that. And I went to a game or two for the Clearwater Phillies. The point is, and the other state where they have the training camps is Arizona. So half the teams are in Arizona in training camp, and half the teams are in Florida for training camp. The point is, they all have camp. Professional teams, they have camps where they go away from their normal place and prepare for the season that is coming, or prepare for whatever the situation is that is coming. And the question is, why do they do this? Athletes and sports teams go into training camps so that they can focus, eliminate outside distractions, and position themselves to be the best that they can possibly be at the thing that they do on a professional level. There's a hint in there. And there's also a reason why fighters in combat sports probably have the longest training camps of any sport in general. They probably have a longer camp than baseball and basketball teams. Why? It's because if a fighter goes into a fight unprepared, he can get his damn head knocked off. He can get his life rearranged by showing up to that fight not ready to fight. The consequences are not so dire if you show up to a baseball season unprepared. You'll just look bad. You may not get in the game too much. Your fans will boo you, but that's not the same as getting your head knocked off in a boxing ring. So the consequences are not as dire if you're unprepared for a basketball game or a baseball game. You show up to a fight unprepared, it could change your life in more ways than one, and not in a good way. So what you need to understand here, metaphorically, is the more serious you are about the outcome of a thing, or the more dire the circumstances if you do not achieve the thing, the higher the level your focus needs to be. Again, this is why professional athletes who are in the top 1% in the world of what they do, anytime they're getting ready to do the thing, they go away, they focus, and they prepare before they do the thing. So any of you who thought falsely that professional athletes play at the level that we play at, I say we because I have been a professional athlete, or those who are playing today. Reason they play at the level that they play at is because of the preparation, not because they are just supremely talented. Are they supremely talented? Yes, but that's not the reason why they perform the level that they do. There are a lot of talented people who don't make it to the pros. And any talented person who doesn't make it to the pros, the main reason why is because they lack discipline. And you know what goes underneath the heading of discipline? Consistency, structure, focus. A lot of undisciplined people simply lack the ability to focus, so they end up fumbling the ball of their talent and potential because they did not get focused. And one of the main reasons people don't focus is because they have no structure that forces them to focus. So any of you who's ever known a very talented individual, at least physically talented, any of you ever known a really talented athlete who didn't make it? Why did they not make it? It's not because they ran out of talent. Because they weren't able to focus. And they were trying to do too many things other than the main thing, and they ended up losing everything. That's what happens. Michael Jordan, I remember there was an interview he did. Michael Jordan doesn't do many interviews. I remember I was in a car dealership once, and they had a bunch of magazines about cigars in this car dealership. I don't know why, but I guess that's what they deduced that people who bought this kind of car would read. So I started thumbing through one of these magazines because Michael Jordan, I believe he was on the cover of the magazine. And this is interesting because Michael Jordan does not do many interviews. He didn't do a super ton amount when he was playing, but he was very available to the media. But then when he stopped playing in the last 25 years, Michael Jordan barely does any interviews. But this was an interview he had done, it wasn't that long ago, this magazine. And Michael Jordan did a full interview with these guys. And then the interview was also on YouTube. So I went and looked up the interview on YouTube. So I'm listening to the interview of Michael Jordan and at the same time thumbing through this magazine. And one of the things that the interviewer and this guy and Michael Jordan, The reason that Michael was willing to have the conversation with the guy, because they were basically smoking cigars while they're talking. And Michael Jordan is a big cigar guy. So the interviewer was asking Michael Jordan just about how he would compare his approach to basketball to the players who are playing these days. And Michael Jordan says something very interesting that I want you all to catch that relates perfectly to today's topic. He said, the level of focus that I, Michael Jordan, required of myself when I was playing, it would be unfair for me to ask or demand on one of the players today to focus the way that I focused. It's just a completely different world that these guys are living in. He didn't say it. He didn't say this part. I'm saying it. The players today couldn't focus the way Michael Jordan did, simply because the players today just have a different mindset. And we also have a whole other set of distractions available to us that Michael Jordan didn't have access to. We didn't have smartphones back in the 90s. Michael Jordan didn't have a smartphone. He had a hotel room with a TV. And maybe he could have some newspapers and magazines, but he didn't have that many options to distract himself. These days, we still got hotel rooms with TVs and newspapers and magazines, but we also have these devices that provide endless distraction. An endless opportunity to engage in distraction, not just to be distracted, because you could be distracted by a magazine, right? But now we have the option of engaging in a distraction, actually being part of the distraction by contributing to the distraction, i.e. posting things on social media. Michael Jordan didn't have the option. But, I mean, Michael Jordan is still alive and he ain't on social media. So this guy just had a different mentality. And I'm bringing all that up to say this. Michael Jordan got more out of his basketball ability. He was very talented, but he got more out of his basketball ability than any player that you can name here today. The closest person you can come to would be LeBron James. And even LeBron James has a whole lot of things that he could possibly be distracted by outside of just basketball. As you can see, LeBron's got a lot going on that he presents himself as being hands-on in outside of playing basketball. And I've always firmly believed, if I've never said this, you never heard me say it, I'll say it here, that if LeBron James had Michael Jordan's mentality with his physicality, he would be equal, if not better than Michael Jordan in terms of outcomes and accomplishments. I'm not talking arguments over who's better. Michael Jordan obviously is the answer. He's better. But, and I'm saying that in a tongue-in-cheek way, but I'm also not joking. But what I'm saying is if Michael Jordan had if LeBron had Michael Jordan's mentality combined with his physicality, he would surpass or at least equal Michael Jordan. The issue is LeBron's in a different world. I'm not knocking LeBron for this. LeBron is very good. And some of you listening to this falsely believe that Michael Jordan's better than Some of you listening to this believe that LeBron is better than Michael Jordan. You're wrong, but you believe it. And I wouldn't be mad at you for believing it, depending on your frame of reference and your age. I understand that you believe LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. See, Freudian slip. I can't even say that LeBron's better than Michael. Even when I try to say it, I'm messing it up. The point being here, folks, is that the focus that Michael Jordan demanded of himself is one of the main reasons why he became Michael Jordan. It's not just because he was so talented. There were a lot of talented basketball players when Jordan played. The reason he beat all of them is because his focus was so strong. He said this in his own words, and you can see it through his behaviors to corroborate what he was saying. He was so focused on just beating everybody on the basketball court. That's all he cared about. And that's the reason why he was so damn good. There's a hint in there that I'm overemphasizing this point so that you don't have to try to find a hint. I'm telling you exactly what it is. The challenge for all of you is not that you don't have the ability to focus. Every human has the ability to focus. The challenge is you are not engaging that ability because you have so many options. What you need to do is limit your options. I told you, pressure and stress are what? A limitation of options. When you put stress on yourself and time pressure on yourself, what are you doing? You're limiting your options when it comes to time. And you know what happens when you limit your options when it comes to time? You get things done. You want to see an example of this? Find yourself running late to catch a plane. Oh, all of a sudden you end up on a plane. How is that? Time pressure. When you pressure yourself by limiting your options, you get shit done. Period. Okay? So we naturally put focus into the thing that we're doing when we know that there is a big payoff that we believe we'll get or a dire circumstance that we come up short. Think about the way you move when you have no cares in the world versus the way you move when you're in an urgent, time-sensitive situation. You're the same person, same skills, same resources, but your focus goes up when you're in an urgent situation. We all do this naturally without even thinking about it. The question is, what would happen if you thought about it? Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is you're doing too much. Number 3, if you were trying to excel at more than one thing at the same time, you're doing too much. I told you this already. You cannot excel at more than one thing at the same time. You can do more than one thing. You cannot excel at more than one thing, especially not at the pro level. Now, you can excel as an amateur at a bunch of things at the same time because your competition is not as tough. At the pro level, you're going against people who are only focused on that thing. And I don't care how talented you are. Eventually, you're going to get beat by somebody who's more focused than you, even if you have more talent than them, if they are putting all their focus on it and you're not. Michael Jordan got beat in 1995 when he came back. And at the tail end of a basketball season from his baseball hiatus, you know why Michael Jordan got beat? It's not because he had lost his skill. We found out over the next 3 years he had not lost any of his skill. The reason why he got beat is because his focus wasn't there. He had been spending all year focused on baseball. He tried to just flip a switch and jump into basketball. He was still pretty damn good. Still put up really good stats. Still had that 55-point game against the New York Knicks and still had a whole bunch of highlights during that little piece of a season that he played. But he ended up getting beat because he's playing against professional players who were all focused just on basketball, and he wasn't. Michael Jordan was good, but he wasn't that good. Even he, the best player, had to get focused in order to get the most out of himself. And you, maybe you're not as talented as Michael Jordan at what you do. So how are you going to divide your focus if he couldn't do it? Again, you can have multiple things going on in your life. You have a career, you have family, you can take care of your physical fitness. That's 3 things right there. But not all 3 of them can be a priority at the same time. You need to get honest with yourself and with the people around you about what's number 1, what's number 2, et cetera, et cetera. Don't keep lying to yourself about this because you're going to keep coming up short in everything at the same time when you're doing that. Be honest about what the priority is and focus on it. And then get everything and everyone else on the same page. That's it. Recapping today's class, which is you're doing too much. Number 1. Focus is a force multiplier. What is your number 1 goal? You need to know what it is, and your energy and actions should reflect your priority. Number 2, everybody knows what boxing and MMA and UFC fighting, you know what these things are, right? And you know what baseball and basketball are, right? You know what the Olympics are? All right. Every athlete in all of these sports, before the competition begins, they go into a camp, which is usually away from their normal geographical area. And it's for several weeks or even months to do what? Prepare for the competition. Why? Because they know they cannot get the best out of themselves unless they isolate themselves and prepare just for that and don't do anything else. And when you do this, you get the most out of your abilities. This applies to all of us the same way it applies to them, even if you're not an athlete. Number 3, if you're trying to excel at more than one thing at the same time, especially at the professional level, you will fail. Because you're trying to do too many things. You are a human being. The limitation of human beings is that you cannot do more than one thing at a professional level very well at the same time. Decide where you want to focus. And if you do so well in that one thing in which you are focused, that will take care of all the other things. Again, you want to see an example of this? Look at Michael Jordan. He focused just on basketball. He got everything else without even trying to do it. He didn't have to manufacture it like a lot of players are trying to do today. They're trying to do 10 things. Michael Jordan did one thing and he got 100 other things without even trying to get them because he was so good at the one. Players today are trying to do 10 things and they're not good at any of them because they're trying to do 10 at the same time. Notice this. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. Work with me directly. Have me as your direct coach so we can get focused on what matters most. You can start producing so much ROI from that thing that everything else gets taken care of. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all